Hello and welcome to another episode of The Only Playbook. Man, it feels like it's been forever. This is episode 55. The draft is over and we're here to talk all about it. We got the 5 best and the 5 worst overall drafts, as well as the 5 best individual picks and the 5 worst individual picks in the 2022 NFL draft. Again, we're The Only Playbook. I'm Sweet Car. I got Shashot, Shovit. Been too long, guys. Forgot what you guys look like.
I just saw you like 3 days ago, bro.
Bro, they don't need to know that. The viewers don't know shit. They don't know when I saw you. But it does feel weird not having it talked about NFL for like a couple weeks. But it's okay because, again, we let all the mainstream PFF, NFL.com, CBS get all their crap out. And then we've actually had time to like think, dissect, and like let this seep in. And so all of our responses are just much more calculated and not emotional. So I think that's going to be much more appreciated. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, all the support so far has been incredible. We're everywhere. All the podcast platforms that you could listen to if you're watching on YouTube, social media everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Only Playbook. So thank you guys so much for all of the support. Let's jump into the information. Shashot, I'm going to let you start us off here. You went above and beyond and got even deeper into the weeds, and you went individual picks. So you have the 5 best picks of your opinion of the entire draft and the 5 worst picks of the entire draft. So take it away, man.
All right, we'll start with the worst and end with a nice little happy note with all the best. So first and foremost, Quay Walker, Georgia linebacker. With its 22nd overall pick, Green Bay chose him. A lot of people might be happy with this pick, but there's many reasons for me to not be excited about this. It may be another year, but it's the same old story for Green Bay, who perennially ignore the receiver position. When you have arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, and you're unwilling to fill in those needs with some of these elite level talent in the receiver position still open, and you're going with Quay Walker, who is just as good as his counterpart on that team, Nakobe Dean, who fell. It really makes you wonder, like, why Green Bay? Why? You already have, you already signed Devontae Campbell. You did lose an edge rusher, but you still have, a solid linebacker core. You clearly don't have wide receiver help. So it just a big question mark on why they went here. He's got the talent. They like to say he's raw. I hate that word, but I like that word right now because it fits my narrative. He's a very raw prospect, and it's going to take him a while. He's not going to be an immediate play every down player. So knowing Aaron Rodgers is already pissed off Davante Adams, the whole story behind that and how he didn't know he was going to be leaving. This is a win now time. I know we don't say that very often for a team like Green Bay. It's like they always win, but there's a lot of turmoil going on and they want to win now. Things need to happen now. There's a lot of pointing fingers happening, and you go with like a longevity player as your 22nd overall pick. I don't like that. That's a bad pick.
Yeah, 46. He's 46 on the consensus overall big board. So kind of a reach.
Yeah, he's got a lot of raw talent. That's what the people like. But a team like Green Bay, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, and the second pick, I guess the fourth worst pick for me, is Cole Strange, center from UT Chattanooga. The only thing stranger than this in the last 2 weeks has been the Doctor Strange movie. You guys should all go check that out. We are not sponsored, but you should go check it out. New England selected him with the 29th overall pick. Again, there was a lot of room for improvement there. I understand they did need some help in the offensive line area, but there's not a lot of history coming from UT Chattanooga as a successful first-round draft school. Even Terrell Owens came from there, but he wasn't a first round pick. So it's just, there's a lot of question marks as far as this player particularly. He's got the talent, but and also doubting Bill Belichick is never. It's always bad for business when you go down that road. But it is fair to question his decision on drafting a small school lineman when he did. And because they could have accumulated more picks moving down and selecting him in a later round, he was going to be available most likely. So there's a lot of question marks there. He's going to be 24 years old as well. So it's like they're not getting a fresh youngster. It's like they almost have a veteran already coming in if you really think about it, when you think about it from a lineman perspective. So again, a lot of question marks there. Do you guys have any questions about this pick?
No, he was the biggest reach by far. You guys saw the Sean McVay Sean McVay video where him and I forget who it was, but they like laughed, and Sean McVay was like, "Man, I did all this research on him, thinking we're gonna get him at 101," and so that just gives you an idea of where the consensus board was. They ranked him 86th overall, and it's a combination of things, right? Like you said, they could have traded down, acquire more picks. They could have literally waited and probably reached on him in the second round, because that even would have been a reach. So why take a player that arguably nobody has this high up when you know, like, you can still get him if you just, take him in the second round? Even that's even a reach, but at least it's a little bit more justifiable. Yeah, you're right in the sense that you can never doubt Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick almost like outsmarted himself, because if he's thinking value, he would have been able to take Strange wherever he wanted, and still gotten, immediate impact players in the first round. So definitely questionable.
I couldn't even find highlight reels of this guy. I was trying to find videos after every draft. Hopefully, I mean, maybe it's one of these Bill Belichick things or whatever, but I think that, like, however way they drafted, if they would have just done that draft in the next round, they would have probably got those players. And it was a lot of reaching on all fronts, not just round 1, but round 2 and round 3 as well.
Yeah, if any other team were to do it, they would be crucified right now, but it's the Patriots, so we're gonna have to wait and see. Okay, so I think the third worst pick in this draft, I'm going to go with Alontae Taylor, Tennessee, from cornerback. The Saints got him with the 49th overall pick. I think this was one of the worst moves of the second round, just overall. Versatility was his main selling point. He can play corner or safety, which is cool. It's cool to think about, having that opportunity, but he lacks the upside that teams generally covet in this, like, top 50 selection area. He doesn't have the skill to be one of the best cornerbacks or be one of the best safeties. So how does versatility help you there? I don't know. Maybe an NFL team can soup him up, but I wanted them to go with a more traditional safety approach. Fellow second rounder Brian Cook was available. He was drafted in the same round. He would have fit in well because they just lost Marcus Williams. They could have had like a legit safety to come fill in for a legit safety. And now they're going to have to go with a guy that we don't know what position he's going to play. Seems like a waste of a pick instead of a secure pick in the first 2 rounds. They went with kind of an iffy pick in the first 2 rounds. You never go iffy picks in the first 2 rounds. And we're going to see how that plays out. But, they have a lot of other holes too. They could have went with Nakobe Dean or Troy Anderson, and they just went with a Swiss Army knife that is not really good at either of those things.
That's depressing to think about. He's like, oh, he's a Swiss Army knife because he can play both positions, but he doesn't play either position very well, right? 98 on the consensus board. PFF actually had this guy ranked 138th on their big board, right? So for him to go 49th overall, like you said, the first 2 rounds, you're looking for like, plug and play or like immediate impact players, and he just is not one. So I'll touch more on the Saints because they're definitely on one of my lists as well. So we'll hit hard on Alontae Taylor a little bit more, but I'm definitely in agreement with you.
Okay, cool. I got 2 more for the worst, and then I'm going to zoom through the best because there's reasons why they're the best. But anyways, this, I guess the fourth, 5, 4, 3, 2. I guess the second worst pick would be Tyquan Thornton from Baylor, the wide receiver from Baylor. New England also drafted him with their 50th overall pick. Their second pick was arguably even more questionable than their first because they traded up 4 spots to select this man with the 50th pick. It was not only a reach because he's a speedster, just a raw speedster.
4.28 40, I think.
4.28. But he's widely regarded as a mid-round target. That's because he hasn't shown us what it requires to be a number 1 receiver. He just seems like another Harris from the Saints or another Tavon Austin. Like, is that what we want this with your 50th pick? I understand the Patriots have been struggling in that wide receiver position for a long time, but if you're going to make these crazy trades all throughout the first half of the draft, why didn't you go with more security? Why didn't you pick up? There were so many receivers all over flying around all throughout this draft. And they went with questionable Chattanoogians and wide receivers that are just strictly fast. So, it makes me wonder because Sky Moore, would have been available at New England's original draft spot. And those players are game changers. And now Sky Moore is going to be catching touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes, while this man is going to be returning maybe 1 kick for a touchdown in the next 3 years. So, again, that's why I think that's the second most ridiculous pick from a team that had already made a ridiculous pick earlier in the draft.
No, you're right, because he was a bigger reach based on consensus board than even Cole Strange, right? 145th on the consensus board, got drafted 50th. You mentioned Sky Moore showed. George Pickens was on the board there for them.
Yeah.
Alec Pierce, my boy, was on the board for them. Sky Moore, gonna be a stud for Mahomes, was on the board there. Jalen Tolbert on the board, and then she showed your dark horse, David Bell, also on the board there. So many ways they could have gone there. And for a team, again, let's think about the New England Patriots for a second. Like, what New England Patriots receiver jumps out to you like, holy shit, they got a number one. Let's try to build around that guy.
None of them.
There's not one, right? So why the hell are you getting a project one-dimensional guy? All he is fast. That's literally all this guy is. They're drafting based on speed. Again, we don't question Belichick, but when your first two picks could have been taken in the third and fourth or the fourth and fifth round, and then you would have had a very successful draft, yet for whatever reason you decided to take him in the first and second. I mean, I don't give a shit. I'm sorry if you're Bill Belichick, you're still going to get scrutinized because draft is all about value. And again, he could have still got these players if he really wanted them. Why didn't he just fucking wait? They had 8 other picks after the second round. They would have absolutely had the opportunity to get one of these guys. So I don't know, man. I don't know. And again, the draft's such a crapshoot that who the fuck knows at the end of the day, right? I mean, all of us sat here and talked about Malik Willis, and we saw what happened to him, third round. So nobody truly really knows. But again, there's a reason there's a consensus board that takes every single mock, every single team's mock, every single analyst's mock, and then they consensualize whoever kind of based on averages, right? And so what majority of people thought is not what Bill Belichick thought. But again, Bill Belichick has all the rings. So at the end of the day, there's a reason he's a different animal.
Yeah, that's Tom Brady. No, I mean, the point is, I mean, when you're doing fantasy drafts, you're not going to reach for a tight end in the second round when all the good ones have already been, like George Kittle is gone. What's his name?
Travis
Kansas City
Kelce.
Chiefs, Travis Kelce. Yeah, these guys are gone. You're not reaching for like a Max Williams or something like that. You just don't do that. So it's weird to see Bill Belichick employ this strategy. Let's see if it works. Bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Very bold. Very bold. Okay, and you guys ready? Drum roll for the dumbest pick of the draft.
I already thought you
dumbest
picked so many dumb picks. I can't even decide who the hell you're talking about.
Oh, dude, this was so dumb. This is so dumb. Okay, the dumbest pick of the draft goes to the 49ers with the 93rd overall pick, choosing running back Tyrion, I don't know how to pronounce it, Davis Price from LSU. All right. LSU running backs, they do pretty well in the NFL. Lately, they haven't been doing pretty well. And I'm going to go with the trend and go with the latelys because before they had big, mean running backs that would just run down your throat and have all these intangibles. You would see them all over ESPN because they were special. And now we're just popping out Clyde Frogs and these guys, these Tyrion Lannisters. So for me, a team like the 49ers, who is built on lateral speed, how many freaking times do I emphasize that? They pick a guy who ran barely just sub 4.45. That's not Mostert speed. That's not Elijah, Mitchell speed. So they're kind of taking a back step. They're kind of changing how they operate. And I don't know if I like that. He did pretty well at the combine. He is 211 pounds. But again, it's a huge question mark. I think it's very, very stupid because the 49ers have figured it out. They were the first team to figure out how to use running backs properly with the proper schemes. And now they're doing something different. So it's hard for me to question them with that regard. But then I see how other teams are trying to be more like the 49ers, and the 49ers are not trying to be like themselves. So I'm like, what are you doing, 49ers? Why did you pick a 4th or 5th round prospect? This, how are you going to fall in love with a 4th or 5th round prospect when there were so many more running backs still available? That's the part that gets to me is like, yeah, Cook was gone and everything, but even at that spot, even with the 93rd pick, there were still not only more talented, but more proven running backs still on the board. So it makes you wonder, what do you see in them, 49ers? Does this mean I take a really, really bad pick gamble late in my fantasy rounds? Because this is an enigma. Like, this makes no sense. What do they see? What do the 49ers see that I don't see? I don't know.
They see nothing. They see nothing. He's 234th on the consensus board. And not only what you just said, guys, the 49ers have been like churning running backs over the course of the last couple of years. Listen to their running back depth chart. They literally drafted Elijah Mitchell last year. Okay. And this guy was a stud. So we know running back shelf lives are short and everything, but this dude was a rookie last year. So he's clearly still got longevity. So there's no need for it. He's the clear cut back. They still have Jeff Wilson Jr., JaMychal Hasty. And then they drafted 2 years ago, Trey Sermon, who's like the opposite of Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah.
He's like that bigger bruiser guy, right? Which is what this fucking Tyrion Lannister did supposed to be. So not only did they reach like heavily for a running back, they didn't even freaking need a running back. They have so many running backs on their roster, and they run that offense that anybody can come in and play running back. So there's no need to reach for a running back. It just makes zero sense.
Yeah. And if you look at the rankings like you were doing for the other players that we mentioned so far, I can bet you there's probably like 7 or 8 players better than him ranked over him. So it's like, what are you doing?
234 players to be exact, but
yeah. So, okay. So that rounds off my, the dumbest picks of the draft so far, or, this isn't about value. I didn't rank this according to value. I just ranked it according to pure stupidity and what they needed and what they instead chose. Okay, so translate over to the other side. Here are the top 5 best picks. And I used, the way I analyzed this is not value. I didn't go by best available because that's an easy list. Everybody can make best available. Then we could put Nakobe Dean as number 1, all kinds of weird stuff like that. I went with sheer production, who I believe is going to come into the league and take over the league. So number 1 or number 5, we'll start with 5. Number 5, Jameson Williams. You're an Alabama product, right? You're coming in to play with a Detroit Lions team, which is improved on so many levels. And they didn't select you with their first pick. They got him with the 12th overall pick. So, well-rounded draft. I'm sure one of you guys are going to talk about the Lions draft here shortly. But this man is ready to play. I think, Sweetcar, you might have mentioned him as Will Fuller when we were talking about these players back in the day. But I think he's going to be better because he's not as injury prone as Will Fuller. Will Fuller literally has a different designation of injury every single time he pops out on the field. This man is a little bit more, he did tear his ACL against Georgia in the national title game. But again, you guys have heard how many times I don't care about ACL tears. It doesn't mean anything in this day and age. So yes, he's a linear route runner, record-breaking high school hurdler, smooth route takeoff with instant gas. So it's one of those Tyreek Hill type of players where I don't like gassing people up like that. But when you can stop and go at your at an instant, that's special. That is something that 99.9% of the other NFL players don't have. So that makes you stop and listen. And now you have Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side. Add him into the mix. He might be a day 3 starter. He might be a day 1 starter. Realistically, if the Lions become a good team, he will be playing for this team. If they're a successful team, he will be playing. He will be starting on that team. If the Lions are still average or whatnot, they might shelf him up for this year and make him come back next year because of that ACL tear. But I don't think that's going to hinder him. And I think that was a beautiful pick. So I like to call this the 5th best pick of the draft.
Yeah, the only other reason I also agree is they were able to move up 20 spots with the division opponent, right? So the value in what they did to acquire the 12th pick, they still swapped 2nd round picks. So it wasn't like they just moved up and they didn't get anything else. So that also adds so much value to the Jameson Williams pick. And like we talked about, his speed is like that. It's game breaking, game changing speed, right? It's not just normal fast. It's like Tyreek type fast. And so, yeah, anytime you can get a guy like that, especially pairing him with the emergence of a guy that's going to, catch everything over the middle and do all the other stuff like Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to do, and Hawkinson. I mean, they're building a pretty formidable weapon core.
Yeah, they are. They definitely are. All right. Okay. Now with the 4th best pick of this draft, it's going to come at the spot 4 by the Jets, Sauce Gardner. I'm a little shocked, actually. I would have taken him 3 over 4. But some people like other cornerbacks better than other cornerbacks, and he falls to the Jets. Yes, he went to Cincinnati there. Yes, he didn't play against some of the top of the line players. But, at the end of the day, you get what you see from him, and it's just shut down. I like to dabble on that, and I like to ride that all the way to the end of his career because I think he's going to be a stud. His comparison was a young Richard Sherman coming out and just taking over the league by storm. So I think that's something that I trust. I think a team like the Jets, who have struggled at the cornerback position for years, maybe they had their eyes on Stingley. I don't know. But as soon as he was available, as soon as Sauce was available, they realized we have to take him. We have sucked at this position for a decade or longer. Since who's the last good cornerback you can think of that was a Jet?
Darrell Revis.
Darrell Revis. That's a long ass time ago. It's time
Cromartie,
to improve
but
on
same
that.
time, yeah, same time.
Yeah. Cromartie's more longevity, but he wasn't never. I wouldn't consider him a shutdown guy. He liked to return punts and everything. He was a really good player, but shut down, like this is a term we don't get to throw around very often. And now the Jets, who are unanimously some of the worst sports teams of all time, just gained a shutdown cornerback. That deserves some notice. Now this will not only improve the defense, but it'll improve the offense by default, because now they're going to have more three and outs forced upon other teams, more chances for a younger quarterback to throw to some of his younger weapons. This is just good news overall for a team like the Jets, and a skill set of this kind doesn't come very often. He's a tall corner with long limbs, sticky hands. He's got a blend of confidence and competitiveness that young people just don't have. They don't have because they're not sure. They're not confident in their abilities. This man just walking in here like, I'm gonna shut you down. I'm gonna shut you down. I'm gonna shut you down. Whether that happens or not, I don't care. I like to hear that from him, and I like to trust that will happen. I mean, and he's proven it throughout his career, albeit he hasn't gotten to play against teams like LSU and all that, but with the opportunity that he's been given, he's been shutting them all out. So I'd like to ride that high and see what happens. And I think that makes this a very good pick.
He's got the mama mentality, and who his teammate was in college? Kobe Bryant, the cornerback for Cincinnati. So
COBY.
Yeah, COBY. Not the better Kobe, but when you have it, what's weird about Kobe Bryant? That side note, he's the other cornerback from Cincinnati, and he's less of a prospect, but I felt like I was so inclined to take Kobe Bryant just because of his name, knowing that with great power comes great responsibility, bro. If your parents deciding to name you Kobe Bryant, if you grow up with the name Kobe Bryant, and you suck or you just don't give 100% effort, that just doesn't happen. So for that alone, I would be taking a risk in drafting a guy with that name. But I agree. Sauce Gardner, stud. We were all shocked about the Stingley thing because it all happened so close to the actual draft time, even 5 hours before. It was sauce. And then we checked the Vegas odds, and Stingley's minus 200 to go third overall. So crazy how that works. But Jets got to steal.
So, his name is Sauce, right? And this guy carries a bottle with him, a small bottle with sauce in it.
It's chain.
It's a chain. Yeah, actually, it's a chain. And so I think some guy asked him, he's what kind of sauce do you have in there? He's like, it's different every day. Some day it's ranch, some days. But I assume it's going to be probably applesauce because the Big Apple in New York, maybe that's going to be the new sauce that they use. Yeah,
I like the different every day. It just means it means he's adaptable. He's got the adaptability that no matter what receiver is going to be opposing him, however he's going to play, he's going to fucking play. So
you can taste the sauce all you want, but it's going to be a new sauce the next day. That's cool. Anyways, so we're going to go now to our third best pick of this draft. And, very, very obvious choice here. But I think Aiden Hutchinson, after doing my research on post-draft research, I now realize the Jaguars made a bad mistake. I think Aiden Hutchinson should have gone number 1. And I think for the Lions to grab him at 2, I think this sucks. This sucks for a Vikings fan because it's going to be a decade or more of just torture and pain. And it's coming because his resume is absolutely ridiculous. He's been a prospect ever since he stepped foot on grass. He's been killing his Pee-wee leagues. He's been killing college, high school, every level. The only time he was actually not an all-pro in anything he's ever done as far as football is when he broke his leg. He fractured his leg, kept him out for a couple of years, came back, the same energy, same level of confidence. He had no joint injuries. He just fractured his leg. It healed perfectly. He's back, and it's like nothing ever changed. That's ridiculous. That's crazy to think about. I was reading up on him, and I saw how, he's a legendary weight room grinder who's not only strong, but he's flexible. He can bend in different directions, which decreases injuries. That's big for a defensive end. We've seen how defensive ends careers, as big as they're supposed to be, end really quickly because they tear their bicep or they tear their tricep. And being a flexible guy, if you look at his workout videos, I'm like, dude, a dude that big should not be moving weights like that or be bending in those directions. So after seeing a little bit of that, I'm like understanding what it really meant to have this guy on a team. He's a tough guy. He's a very tough guy. He can run through pretty much any left tackle in college. Sweetheart, what were some of the things that you were worried about him? When you were talking about him.
So Aiden Hutchinson's an interesting one. I think he absolutely should have been the number one player. I think, again, we fall into this world now where they have what's called the RAS, the relative athletic score. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but basically it's like measuring athleticism going back to, I don't know, 2000 or something. And it's every player, right? Every player. And Aiden Hutchinson is athletic, but people scrutinized whether his potential versus what he's already reached, how I guess how big that difference is, right? So it's like he's already so good now, but is this the ceiling? And everyone kept saying like he's not the Bosa, he's not the Watt, so he's kind of a tier below that, but it's still production, right? You value production, and so I can respect that. But the reason Trayvon ended up going before him last second is because, again, the NFL is moving into this direction where they're valuing like upside potential over actual collegiate production. And that's why Aiden went 2. So it's like, again, I don't think the Lions would have been upset if Aiden went 1 and then they got their choice of anybody else as well. But yeah, when the consensus number 1 guy just falls in your lap on draft day, like, how are you going to be upset with that? There's no way to be upset with that. So no, I think they hit a home run. I don't have any qualms with Aiden Hutchinson. I shouldn't say shit about him because, again, he's going to be in our division. If he just wreaks havoc on the Vikings for years and years, it's going to make me have to eat my own words. So better to start now and just assume he's going to be really fucking good.
There are a couple of things. There's just like 2 things that I got to mention that I did not like about him. His run game instincts are just average. I didn't see anything crazy about stopping the run. There's some other defensive ends that are flying out there from one side to the other, like diving to not let him get an inch. He kind of let some of that go. And I think I know why, because like I said, I watched a lot of film on this guy over the last couple of weeks. But because he's a pure muscle mass guy, he likes to run through people. Think about how long that can last in a football game. It's not going to last very long. You're going to max out your energy, and then what? And then what? And then you got below average arm strength, and your run game instincts are just average. That's not going to work. So he needs to fix that. And I think I did read a lot about how they're going to change him into fitting into their scheme rather than just taking his skill set and throwing him on there. So I think he'll evolve more as a player, and he's already got what it takes. Like he's like the locker room guy. He's got the JJ Watt kind of mentality to like lead a team. So I think for that reason, I think that was a great pick. And, I feel bad not respecting him before the draft, because I just thought it was going to be like any other guy, but now I see the true potential that this guy has.
Yeah, he's going to be another guy who's like a face of the franchise. Like you said, JJ Watt, like he instantly comes and like brings a certain culture, right? He can be the guy that has interviews after tough games and stuff. He's not afraid to talk to the media, right. And that stuff's important.
Absolutely. Okay. And so the second best pick, again, another guy I kind of didn't like before. I thought there was too much uncertainty, but Kyle Hamilton. I'm going to go ahead and go with Kyle Hamilton. Safety from Notre Dame, 14th overall pick by the Ravens. The Ravens had a phenomenal draft, and he was the first one to lead that draft off. He played college basketball. Should I say anymore? Like, it's like there's a trend here. There's a clear trend here with like taller players and the need to have dual athleticism, especially at a place like safety, because you're expected to be all over the place. You're expected to reach the highs, the lows, the lefts, the rights, and having elite speed. Actually, he didn't have elite speed, but he had a really good 3-cone drill. So having elite agility and having being compared to players like Cam Chancellor, who can do crazy stuff out there, having the frame, having the muscle mass that he has, having the versatility to play in any scheme, any alignment, the competitiveness, the physicality, the football smarts. He's an intimidator up the middle. Like, if there's a running back coming up the middle, they're not going to lower their shoulder when they see Kyle Hamilton. They're going to try to evade him. They're going to try to do this. They're going to try to do that. And I think that matters. I think the fact that he has little to no weaknesses, the height is a natural barrier when you're talking about change of direction for players. When you're 6'4", your change of direction is smaller than a safety who's 6'1". That's just the way it is. So that might be a problem. And there's like a little bit of room for improvement with like pattern recognition and like anticipation of the ball. But outside of that, like pure physicality wise, there are none better in this position. And, and he's improved tackling in space over time, which is harder to do. And he's already mastered that at this level. So it can only get better from here. So after looking this up and actually understanding what his strengths and weaknesses are to the T, there are very little weaknesses. There are a lot of strengths, and that's a lot to like for this pick. And for that reason, I make this my second best pick of the draft.
Yeah, I'll touch on the Ravens later, so I don't want to say any more on that.
Okay. All right. All right, then I'll just hit him with the last pick. And the best pick of the draft, in my humble opinion, are the New York Giants. We're still going to stay up here in the top 10 because they're going to be the best picks at the end of the day, or most likely. We're going to go with Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama, drafted 7th overall by the Giants. Massive fellow, tall as hell, just has no regard for human life. He's been a top 10 recruit in the country for a long time. He's just, there's been eyes on him at all time. Is he going to falter having all this pressure? No, has never faltered. He was a 3-year starter. He's got rare combination of measurables like talent, and the pedigree is insane. It's just the man is just what you want. This is what you want. He's dropped 15 pounds in the offseason. He's much quicker now. He's well schooled. He understands the game. He knows the technical aspects of the game and of the position. And he's played against like top level competition over the last 3 seasons. He's played against the best of the best the country has to offer. And no one's really done shit. So, his resume, that's all you need to see. And a team like the Giants, who terribly need offensive line help, and now they get Evan Neal. They can give more time to their valuable quarterback that they're not willing to go away from this year. So, this only helps. I didn't like some of the other picks the Giants did. They drafted another wide receiver. Why did you do that? If Kadarius Toney was going to get traded away, then it makes sense, but he never ended up going anywhere. So now you just got another receiver. Congratulations. You love getting receivers. But this pick in itself is amazing. This pick, Evan Neal, I only have good things to say. There are very, very bad things to say. His weight was the worst thing. If you were to ask me this question 3 months ago, oh, he's too big. He's not nimble enough. He'll drop 15 pounds. Now he's looking like a beast out there on Instagram. Plays with good attitude. I think his quickness may be an issue, but you don't need to be that quick when you're a left tackle, as long as you're good at that one form of quickness. So for that reason, I think this is a great pick. This guy will probably be the best offensive lineman in football once the Nelsons that are done, once some of these other names are done. I think as far as tackles go, we are now looking at the face of the tackle position in football for years to come.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Evan Neal, you could argue, is the best talent in the draft, right? Like, I think there is a possibility if the number 1 overall team needed a tackle badly, Evan Neal would have gone first. So there's very few players in this draft that I'm certain are just going to come into the NFL and immediately be stars. And Evan Neal is absolutely one of them. So for the Giants to not have to take him at 5, but then also get him at 7, I mean, again, you can't hit a home run like that. They couldn't have predicted a better draft outcome. And again, he was the 2nd tackle that went, because Ickey went first. So yeah, unreal talent. Again, barring injuries or some unforeseen circumstance, this guy's going to come in and immediately be a star. That's the 5. That's the 5 best and the 5 worst individual players. I'm going to get a little bit more generalized on us here. I have 5 of my best teams overall drafts and 5 of my worst team overall drafts. Shovit, obviously chime in wherever you see fit. But I'll start with my 5 best. And by the way, this was in no particular order. It was really tough for me to rank the best. Like, a lot of these drafts were really, really good. I actually had a harder time finding worse. So these aren't like 1 through 5. It's just 5 of the best drafts that I personally thought. So let's get it. We already talked a little bit about them. The Jets have to be highlighted. Just like, if they only had first-round picks this year, 3 picks in the draft, they still would have had one of the best drafts of the entire draft, right? You get Sauce Gardner at 4, arguably the best cornerback, right? He was getting mocked as high as 2 at some point. Stingley again made that late wave, but again, I think consensus, a lot of people thought Sauce was the best cornerback. So Sauce at 4, and then you get the best receiver at 10. So the second best receiver arguably goes before, and the best receiver falls in your lap. So 2 picks in a row where the best player at that position basically fell in your lap because somebody reached. Don't know if that's how the careers are going to pan out, but from what we know now, they got the 2 best players at those 2 best positions, and they didn't have to trade up. They just literally fell into their lap. So you cannot be upset with that. And then to turn back around and trade back into the first round at the 26th position and get Jermaine Johnson, who Again, consensus board, 11th best player. And there were mocks that had the Giants taking him with their, or the Jets taking him with their 10th pick, right? So for them to casually be like, you know what, this is our first round. We got Sauce and Wilson. We're pretty content. We'll try to get edge somewhere, down the road in the draft. See, for whatever reason, Jermaine Johnson continues to slide. They didn't wait. They were like, you know what? Fuck this. We're going to trade back into the first at 26 and take him. Again, those 3 picks alone, you got 3 of like the 10 best talents in the entire draft. So there's no way the Jets didn't have a successful draft. Pair that with the fact that they got Breece Hall in the second round, which I know people don't like running backs going early, blah, blah, blah. But again, when you've already had a home run of a draft there and you need to surround Zach Wilson with as many weapons as possible, you get the best dual threat running back in this class with catching and running combined. So that's going to be super fun to pair him with Michael Carter. Again, give Zach Wilson another weapon. And then in the third round, they got a tight end. So at Ohio State, Jeremy Ruckert, I just think, again, it doesn't hurt to add weapons to a young receiver or to a young quarterback, right? So the Jets did everything that they could in the first round, got him a talent, got him a weapon, the best weapon in the draft, in my opinion, and then got 2 of the biggest stud defensive players, and then they just kind of filled things out where they saw fit. So I didn't give 2 shits about their 4th round picks because it really doesn't matter. They already hit a home run up until this point. So the Jets have to, get a lot of credit for how good this first round, specifically turned out for them.
Absolutely. I think you have 4 guys that can start right off the bat. These guys, the Jets were also on my board of the top 5 picks. I mean, you've already mentioned Sauce, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, who was a touchdown machine. I mean, that guy had broke a record, right? Like 21 games with straight touchdowns. He's a 3-down back. I know they've got Michael Carter, but you can have as many running backs as you can these days, and the more the merrier. The one guy I will highlight on is Michael Clemens, the defensive end from Texas A&M. This guy ran a 4.83 40. He's 6'5", 263 pounds. So even in the 4th round, right, you already have great first 4 picks. You go out and get someone that has potential that could be, a solid defensive end through coaching and all the right training and things like that. But he's got, as far as the, prototypical defensive end, characteristics, he's got that. So, I mean, now the skills just need to match that trait. So I think all in all, New York Jets had a solid pick. And it helps when you have 3 to number 1 picks as well.
It helps for Michael Clemens because in the first round, they took Jermaine Johnson, right? So if he needs to learn how to rush the passer and become a better edge, you already have another fellow rookie from your class that is a cream of the crop that can help you with that. So yeah, I actually also really, really like Michael Clemens. At 117, he's, again, going to be a rotational edge, but he's got a 6'5" frame. Again, like you said, when you have a mold, a lot of people like the mold and they think they can teach how to rush, how to be effective. And, most people that know how to rush and how to be effective are smaller. They have small hands, whatever the case may be. But like you said, stature and athleticism and overall build, this guy's a manimal.
Manimal. Let's
jump over to, scary as it is, the Chiefs, bro. The Chiefs absolutely crushed this draft. Another team that had players kind of fall in their lap. It just doesn't really make sense with what we expected other teams to need. I think the Packers not taking a receiver has a lot to do with this, but how other teams thought kind of fell right into the Chiefs' lap, right? Trent McDuffie, 21st overall. Some people argue that he was the best cornerback. Some people think he's the most versatile because he can play nickel. He can play outside. He looks like he could be a safety somewhere down the road just because he's a little bit smaller. So that guy can do it all. The Chiefs desperately needed secondary help. So to get McDuffie in the 20s, that's a steal. And then 30th overall in the first round to get another guy similar to Jermaine Johnson. A lot of people were projecting in the top 20, George Karlaftis, right? They needed edge help. It's one of those things where you're looking at a team that lost Tyreek Hill, right? They obviously got assets to acquire in the trade back, but I don't personally feel like they lost anything because of how well their draft turned out. Sky Moore, 54th overall, getting passed up by teams that desperately need receivers, falling right into Patty Mahomes' lap. I mean, this guy's going to come out of the slot and literally probably catch 100 passes next year. I would not be surprised at all if this guy just turns into Hunter Renfrow 2.0 and all he does is catch passes out of the slot. So absolutely love that. Shishot, you got to like the fact that you talked about Brian Cook earlier and they got him at 62 overall. We know how shitty Daniel Sorensen was last year. So getting a safety to plug and play immediately also helps. And guys, this might have been my biggest steal of the draft. Leo Chenal at 103. This guy, I mentioned RAS, the relative athletic score earlier, out of like 4,000 people that have gone through this relative athletic score, this guy was 20.
Wow.
So this guy is a absolute freak, bro. I think he had like a 41-inch vertical. I think he ran like a sub 4.640. Insane tackler. He does everything. I have no idea why this guy fell. Linebacker, maybe not a premium position, so people are drafting based on value. We saw other linebackers fall as well. Again, the Chiefs, the benefactors of things literally kind of just falling in their lap. So those 5 picks alone right there warrant, to me, the Chiefs having an A in this draft. Absolutely home run. Moving right along. You talked about them earlier. The Baltimore Ravens, probably the best draft. Maybe number 2, maybe number 3. Another, and this is a theme, right? The teams that end up having the best drafts end up being able to kind of stand pat, and things still fall their way. Now, a lot of that's luck. A lot of that's situational, right? So, we can't sit here and be like, oh, the Ravens had a great draft because they sat there and things fell in their lap. Things could have absolutely gone awry if people started reaching for the players that they wanted, but they didn't. Kyle Hamilton, projected 2nd overall to the Lions as early as like a week before the draft, falls to 14 to the Ravens. And I mean, last year, the Ravens had so many injuries on their secondary that their defense just looked atrocious. And it made Marlon Humphrey also look really bad because he was their only secondary piece. Everybody else was hurt. But you're looking at Kyle Hamilton now that's going to play with Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. Oh, and let's not forget, they just signed safety Marcus Williams. So he's coming into a secondary that all of a sudden looks like goddamn Legion of Boom type shit. Like Marcus Williams, Marcus Peters, and Marlon Humphrey. And now you pair that with Kyle Hamilton. Dude, that's arguably one of the best secondaries in the entire NFL. So from last year where the Ravens defense was absolutely atrocious, in 1 year, just via draft and then guys coming back from injury, it's like a complete 180. I mean, that shit's scary. That shit's absolutely scary. Pair that with Tyler Linderbaum falling at 25, best center in the draft. Again, fell into their lap. David Ojabo, 2nd round, 45. We've talked about this. He had that Achilles tear at his pro day, looking at a top 20 talent, maybe top 10. So again, even if he sits for an entire season, the risk is worth the reward with a player like that. So I love that pick. 4th round to get an offensive tackle, Daniel Falale, who also I think is going to end up being a starting offensive tackle in the league. Can't say that about a lot of 4th rounders. And then Jalen Armour Davis, cornerback out of Alabama. Again, there's something to be said about when you go to Bama, right? Like more Bama players probably get drafted than not get drafted just because of that stature. You're constantly going against top level competition. And so this guy, even though the production wasn't there in college, it's not like he's going to be a Sauce or a Stingley. He's got the experience to go up against the best, right? And that means something as you're growing, because he was a kid. He's just a kid, and now he's slowly becoming an adult. So I think that right there is a home run. They also drafted 2 tight ends. I don't know. I mean, Lamar Jackson loves throwing to his tight ends, so you can never have enough weapons, I guess. And then they also got a punter. So they had so many picks for the latter part of the draft that they could pretty much go whichever way they wanted. But 6 draft picks, their first 6 draft picks to me are going to be contributors in the NFL, with the top 3 probably going to be day 1 starters. So I think the Ravens absolutely crushed it. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, they're definitely in they were my number 1 actually. So I got them at number 1 draft pick. I think they were very sly. They just watched all these players start dropping. They're like, oh, we're just going to go grab them. And guys like, Kyle Hamilton, even David Ojabo, a guy that really kind of sticks out to me is Daniel Falale, because this guy is, you mentioned Manimal earlier. This guy's 380 pounds. But the only thing is he hasn't played football he's only been playing since 2016. Yep. He moved from Australia to the US. So maybe there's some kind of technique that he has to work on, and he'll get coaching. But I mean, if he does, then that guy is going to be a beast just by size alone. But I think anytime you go into the draft and you have Marquise Brown and then you get rid of him to get number one pick.
That's their best move of the whole draft, trading away Marquise Brown.
Absolutely. I think that it was just all in all, like, solid draft and well done by the Ravens. It sucks for Steeler fans, but it is what it is.
That's funny. You mentioned Marquise Brown getting traded away. That adds to the value of the Ravens. The next team I have on the board as far as having a successful draft is the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Philadelphia Eagles traded right in front of the Ravens to get defensive tackle Jordan Davis. We already know he's a freak. There's not much that needs to be said about him. There's a reason they traded right in front of the Ravens because everybody thought he was the perfect fit for that Ravens defense. So I think that's a home run right there. And then, dude, you got the best receiver in the draft. You got AJ motherfucking Brown, bro. He's the only established receiver in the draft because he's already played in the NFL. He's already had success. Not to mention, this guy fits everything over the last year we've been talking about the Eagles lacking, right? This is exactly the type of receivers that the Philadelphia Eagles needed. Let's hope he actually stays healthy because I think this pairing is going to be like really, really impressive and exciting to watch. But that alone, when you can trade a first round pick for an established superstar receiver in the NFL already, we have no idea what Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jameson Williams, we can sit here and speculate all we want, but that's how big that jump is from the college to the pros, guys. We don't know, but what we do know is the guys that are already good. And when you can trade away a first round pick and get AJ Brown while other people are trading first round picks for Hollywood Brown, the shittier Brown, that's already a home run right there. So you get the most talented receiver in the draft already, AJ Brown. You got Jordan Davis. I really like Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska at center. I think I mentioned to you guys, I was really hoping the Vikings somehow got him in like the third round, but he ended up going in the second round. He was the 100th on the consensus board and he went 51st. So his pro day and his draft, his combine was what skyrocketed his stock. So I think that's a home run. And then, last but not least, let's not forget about the fact that I absolutely adore Nakobe Dean. He was, to me, the best defensive player on arguably the best defensive, like collegiate defensive team I've ever seen. This defense had 7 guys drafted in the first round. And to me, Nakobe Dean was the best player. He was the one that stood out the most play by play. Now, I didn't know this, but he's got a ton of injury concerns, which obviously makes sense why he dropped. But dude, in the third round, you're going to take a risk on a guy that literally should be like a top 10 talent. Why the fuck not? Like, kudos to you, Philly, for being like, you know what? Any pick after the third round on is a crapshoot anyways. Why would we not take a flyer or a risk on somebody who could turn out to be like the best player in the draft? So that alone right there, AJ Brown, Jordan Davis, and Nakobe Dean, that's a home run. That's a home run.
I think this is probably the second time ever Nakobe Dean has been called adorable. And I think that's his mom and now Sweetgar.
Dude, the dude just, oh my God. He's going to be so good, man. And I think he's so perfect for Philly because he plays so relentless. Like he's everywhere all the damn time, everywhere all the damn time. And the funny thing is a lot of people gave him, slack for saying, yeah, but he's playing behind Devontae Wyatt and some of the best goddamn defensive linemen that, we've ever had the pleasure of watching. But the Eagles were like, oh yeah, we see that. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to put Jordan Davis right in front of him. So they drafted Jordan Davis to put in front of Nakobe Dean, just like it was in college. And so he's going to be able to flourish. And I think he's the perfect pick there. Dude, I was salivating at Nakobe Dean at the idea that he could be a Viking. I don't know what Philly saw that every other team didn't see, but at 83 overall, what was he on the consensus real quick? Let me just look just for my own fucking demise. He was, I believe, 31st on the consensus board, and he drops to 83. Kudos, Philly. That is a win.
He's definitely. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say the relative athletic scores, what you mentioned earlier, right?
Yep.
Jordan Davis looks like he had like a perfect score on the relative athletic score.
Yeah.
There's very few people that have had a perfect score. Calvin Johnson, Cam Newton, Byron Jones, and Jordan Davis. And there's one Viking here. There are two Vikings. One was near perfect. No, Dante Culpepper with a 9.99 and Joe Webb with a perfect 10.
Oh my God. Joe fucking Webb. The anomaly to the RAS score. Poor guy.
Yeah, I just wanted to close saying that, I had Philadelphia Eagles on my list as well, but mainly it's because of that Nakobe Dean value pick at the third round. I mean, that just solidifies top 5, right then and there. And then obviously we've talked about having a veteran presence in the receiving core. And they could have definitely gotten one of the guys that we talked about, Drake London, or not Drake London, but some of the other receivers, Olave. But they went out and got a veteran in AJ Brown, and so kudos to them.
Think about this. They fixed everything at the line. They got a defensive tackle, a center, an edge rusher. They got a tight end who also is mainly used for blocking. So like they really enforced that part of their game, and they added everything they were lacking. So this is well deserved to be in a top 5 best drafts of this year.
Dude, you're again, AJ Brown, you got for the 18th overall pick. Again, I can't even comprehend that, because Hollywood Brown just went for the 23rd overall pick. So like, let's think value there. That's unreal. That's absolutely unreal. If that's all they did and they didn't have another pick till like day 3, I'd still think that was a win, because there's very little like perfect pairings. And again, we've been harping on the fact that the Eagles need a big bodied veteran receiver. And this is exactly that. So dude, kudos to the Eagles. They absolutely crushed it. And last but not least, on my top 5, the Detroit Lions. Shishot, you already mentioned them. Aiden Hutchinson, falling in your lap at 2 because, potential, Trayvon Walker this, Trayvon Walker that. Like, yeah, that's all nice and dandy, but we're looking at production. This guy already has the actual accolades, and he's actually produced on the field. So you know what you're going to get with him. And again, he's a culture builder. He's a culture changer. We're seeing a shift in the Detroit Lions, like overall culture, philosophy, this Dan Campbell era. I honestly think the Lions are turning this like really, really big corner where, I would not be surprised if the next decade is all of a sudden the Lions are a pretty competitive football team. So Aiden Hutchinson, great step in that right direction. You talked about it, Jameson Williams, man, I wanted that guy at 12. So that it's extra kind of fuel to the fire in the sense that they took him at our position where we were supposed to draft. So that sucks. But second round, Josh Pascal, I also liked him as an edge rusher, and now they're pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson. So they get 2 edge rushers, and knowing in a division where you got Aaron Rodgers, where you got Kirk Cousins, where you got mobile Justin Fields, you're going to need to try to generate pressure on the quarterback. So attacking the edge rusher spot with 2 of your first 3 picks, that alone, I really, really like. Other than that, Kirby Joseph, safety, stupid pick because Brady Bree's going to start. This guy's probably going to get cut, so pointless. James Mitchell, the tight end, blocking tight end, also can catch passes, but he got injured. He has a lot of athleticism, so I think he could be a nice complement piece to Hawkinson. But other than that, dude, again, when Aiden Hutchinson, the consensus 1 falls to your lap, and then you trade up and get the fastest and most explosive receiver in the draft, again, it's hard not to love. So kudos Detroit. I feel like this tide is turning. Shout out Brubble. You probably endured some shitty ass times being a Detroit Lions fan, but I'm telling you, man, I really, really see the light at the end of the tunnel for Detroit.
Wait, is Jared Goff not the quarterback anymore? What happened with Detroit?
Dude, it's like when you surround something shitty with enough really, really good things. Jared Goff made the Super Bowl. Remember that? Let's all remember that. So again, when you surround something really shitty with a lot of good things, decent things can happen. So yeah, again, Jared Goff's not the answer. Don't get me wrong. I know next year they're probably going to jump in and draft a quarterback, but I don't know, man. It's a home run to me.
So for me, they drafted 6 of their 8 picks for defensive picks, and that was much needed. I said throughout the year when we were at Buffalo Wild Wings, this is the worst defense I've ever seen in my life. I said that every single week for many, many weeks. And they went out and they said, nope, we're not going to let Zasot call us that anymore. We're going to go ahead and become better. So I give them kudos for that for sure.
Yep. The only thing I would have liked personally, maybe it's nitpicking, is I would have liked to see them get a cornerback earlier. Like, I mean, your only cornerback draft was in the 7th round. And I mean, that's probably not going to pan out. Let's be real. But other than that, what's the next best thing? If your cornerbacks are mediocre, rush the quarterback. And what they do, they got 2 edge rushers in the top 3 picks. So nonetheless, absolute home run for them. Those are my top 5. Shovit, I know you had a couple that did not intertwine with mine, so I'll let you take it away, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty quick, but I've got Green Bay Packers on here as well. So you mentioned Quay Walker earlier. I think that this is actually a pretty good pick for the Packers because this guy is a versatile player that can play, he can rush in the nickel and play different positions as far as inside linebacker goes. It fits with the Packers scheme. So I think that works out for them. Obviously, you have Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle, next pick. Also a Georgia alumni. So I think that those are good on the defensive side. And then the biggest thing that the Packers needed is receiving help. They didn't probably get the top 5 guys that we've talked about, but Christian Watson was definitely on our boards as far as receiving is concerned. He played North Dakota State, tall guy, probably didn't face a lot of competition at North Dakota State, but I mean, it's someone that Aaron Rodgers can work off of. And so in terms of needs met for what the Packers were looking for in this draft, I think that they were able to get that with their defensive help, the receiving core. And then one guy I want to mention is Rasheed Walker in the 7th round. I think that this guy would probably be it's a gamble. He's an inconsistent player, but he's got the size that you could probably end up working out for you. So I think that all in all, with the number of picks that the Packers had, I think that they did really well for themselves of getting meeting their needs, wide receiver, offensive guard, inside linebacker, and then getting some other players here and there to kind of it would take a gamble, I guess.
Yeah, no, I the scary thing as a Vikings fan for the Packers drafting a guy like Christian Watson is, small school, right? Didn't face a lot of competition, but he has all the things you can't really teach. He's 6'4", can't teach that. Ran a 4.36, you can't teach that. 38.5-inch vertical, you can't teach that. So like if he fills out to be the player that his overall make is projecting him to be, that's fucking scary for the Packers, especially with the guy that can make you better in Aaron Rodgers. And then let's not go unnoticed. This guy, the only reason I know anything about him is because I watched a lot of Nevada football for whatever reason. Romeo Doubs, receiver out of Nevada. You know who's throwing him passes? Carson Strong, one of the quarterbacks that I absolutely loved in this draft. And what did we talk about Carson Strong doing? He was a beast with the deep ball, arm, and accuracy. And who was catching those? Romeo Doubs. So this guy's 6'2", 201, 10-inch hands, big ass hands. And he's not the fastest guy. But again, with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, like if he's getting any players that have size, that's scary. Aaron Rodgers is notorious for pinpoint accuracy, right? So he can back shoulder it, put it exactly where his receivers can get it. And his receivers are like athletically freaks now. Again, I think there's a chance that these receivers may turn out to be better than some of those bigger name receivers that we expected, because situationally they're playing with a quarterback that's arguably the best quarterback of all time, contrary to the belief of the random user on all of our social media that continues to bombard us and troll us saying that Aaron Rodgers is a choker and Brady's better, blah, blah, blah. Like that guy has way too much time on his hands, by the way, for him to create like notorious Twitters, Instagrams. Props to you, man. It means that we're doing something right, where you go out of your way to talk to some, small time podcasts, like makes me feel good. So Aaron Rodgers is better than Brady. Keep it coming at us, boy. I think the receiving core, I think the receiver drafts, and then, 7th round, they took Samaje Toure, who's a receiver out of Nebraska, which Nebraska doesn't really produce good receivers. So I don't really know how to feel about that, but I agree with you. Quay Walker was a controversial pick, don't get me wrong, but you're getting 2 of the players from, again, a historic defensive team. So, I mean, it's hard not to like that.
Yeah, if you can get that and, get your wide receiver needs in the later rounds, I think it's a solid draft. But the last one I have is the Buffalo Bills. So when I was thinking about this, the 2 things that came into mind is like, you want to get the needs of your team and you want to get the best players on the board, right? For me, the Buffalo Bills is one of those teams that met their needs and got comparable players to start those positions. For example, Kaiir Elam. So they lose Levi Wallace, right? And that's a pretty big loss for us in the cornerback position. So they go out and get this guy from Florida, Kaiir Elam, 23rd pick, solid pick. The next pick on the 31st pick, 2nd round, was James Cook. Is he related to?
Are you serious right now?
Okay.
Are you messing with me right now?
He's being sarcastic.
Okay.
No, I mean, yeah. So they're related, and so you already have
run identical. If you watch them, it literally is like a replica.
He's a little bit slower than his brother.
He's a little bit smaller too, and I'd argue that he's actually a better pass catcher, to be honest. But it's his brother.
And he doesn't have an injury history.
Yes. Yeah.
And the number one thing is he doesn't have an injury history. So
Yeah. So I think that as far as they had cornerback needs, wide receiver needs, running back needs, offensive tackle needs, those were all met. On 6th round, Luke Tenuta, offensive tackle for Virginia Tech, they met that need. The only thing that they missed is offensive guard. And they also did draft a punter too, which I think it's kind of interesting.
That Punt God.
What's that?
That guy, that's Punt God. Have you heard of Punt God?
I have not.
Yeah, this guy was like,
we saw some of his highlights. He punted from the 20-yard line to like the 1-yard line on the other side.
he
It
literally
went inside the end zone, but
they deemed him the nickname Punt God. So Matt,
he also kicks field goals, by the way.
yes,
he
could
also
could
kicks
also
field
be a
goals.
kicker. This guy might be the first punter kicker we've ever seen. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
but he's got the possibility. Matt, what is it? What is it?
It
Ariza?
starts with an A. Yeah.
Yeah. Ariza. Yeah. So all in all, I think it's a good draft because of meeting the needs and getting the best players on board.
Yeah, I also don't mind Khalil Shakir, Boise State receiver. He's 6 foot, but he ran a 4.43, and he is like the prototypical guy that's going to flourish because of Josh Allen, right? So I think he's a decent pick to kind of expand the receiving core that's already really good. The only thing I would say about Buffalo is I get the James Cook stuff, like 2nd round, 63rd overall, the Dalvin Cook comparison, all that. I still think there are better running backs in this class than James Cook, but I also like why they got him in the sense that he's an ideal pass catcher. So he's really, really good out of the backfield. Josh Allen is, going to flourish with being able to dump the ball off. Hopefully they no longer have to fucking use Zach Moss. I hate Zach Moss. And maybe it's just going to be a Singletary Cook show, but I don't know if there wasn't a better running back that could fit that scheme because, if the Buffalo Bills had like a number one running back in the sense that it was like a Saquon or somebody like that, then just imagine how much more powerful that offense would already be on top of that. But I think Cook is a really nice player. He's just more of a complementary piece. And because he's slightly smaller in frame, I do worry that even though he doesn't have injury history in college, that could definitely translate to some injury history in the pros.
Yeah, I think they were probably sold on getting a running back in the 2nd rounds. They were trying to get Breece Hall, and he was gone the 3rd pick of the 2nd round, and so they went with James Cook.
Yeah. Either way, when you're a team that's already so loaded that you can afford to draft punters, I mean, you're already in a win now mode, right? So you're only like adding cherries on top to an already solid foundation, and that's kind of what Buffalo has. So again, it's hard to be upset at a draft that didn't really have a tremendous amount of holes. All right, should we move on to the 5 worst overall drafts? And a lot of these are going to be repeated because Shisho, you've already talked about some of the players of the team. So I'm going to try to run through these quicker. Patriots, obvious. I don't know what you're doing. Cole Strange, we talked about it. The stretch. Tyquan Thornton, I don't get it. I just don't get it because you don't need that. You need a guy that can actually like be reliable as a receiver because all of your receivers are kind of pretty fucking random, right? Like N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers, solid, nice guy, like, nice little piece. I forget who their number 1 receiver is. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Bourne. It's right now. Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne. No, it's not Bourne or Myers. There's somebody. Did they sign somebody this year? Devontae Parker. They got Devontae Parker. Okay. So they got Devontae Parker. That's not terrible. They do also have Nelson Aguilar. But again, all of these names are like, oh, that's a nice kind of complimentary number 2 receiver, like a nice piece. Maybe Devontae Parker can be that true number 1, but that's why I just didn't really understand the Tyquan Thornton pick when you could have gotten a guy like Sky Moore, who Mac Jones would have absolutely adored because anytime Mac Jones needs to see somebody open, Sky Moore would get open. So that I do not get. And then, because their first 2 picks were so bad, like I didn't even give a shit about the rest of their 8 picks because they were all 3rd round and beyond. So I don't know, man. To me, the Patriots, I know it's Belichick, but you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
No, I agree that they're on my list as well for all those reasons. I mean, we already mentioned it when Shisho was talking about Cole Strange and Tyquan Thornton as far as the worst players to be drafted in that position. So, and wait, they also drafted Bailey Zapp, a quarterback. It's like, what are you trying to tell Zappy? What are you trying to tell Mac Jones getting a quarterback in the 4th round there? I'm not really sure why they did that. So.
Yeah. So explain this to me, right? The logic is Bailey Zappi could come in and be a really nice backup quarterback to Mac Jones. When you have like a rookie or a young quarterback, wouldn't you want your backup to be like a veteran, somebody who's got experience so that if Mac Jones gets hurt, you're not throwing another rookie in there? Like, how is Bailey Zappi a decent backup to an already like 2nd year quarterback? It just doesn't make sense to me. Who knows? Maybe Bailey Zappi's going to be the Jimmy Garoppolo to Mac Jones's Tom Brady. don't count out anything with Bill Belichick. But yeah, I also think that's questionable. I don't think it's going to hinder them in the sense that you mentioned, like, what does that say about Mac Jones? It's not like they got somebody in the first round or anything like that. And again, weak quarterback class, all that crap. They know that, it's kind of a crapshoot, but it just didn't seem necessary. I think they already have Brian Hoyer as their backup quarterback. So what's the need there? Jumping right along, the New Orleans Saints already been talked about. I'm questioning their draft strategy, man, just a little bit. So explain this to me. They traded up to the 11th pick to take Chris Olave, which nice receiver, nice player. I think he's like the best route runner in the class. So I can't be upset about that, but you traded up to get him. And at the 11th spot, Jameson Williams was still available, right? Like, cause Jameson Williams got drafted 12th. That's a game changer. That's a game-changing player. To me, Olave can be really, really good, but he's not game-breaking speed. He's not like generational. Like I think Williams had a chance to be generational. So you traded up, which means you lost value. You had to give something up to do that. And then not only that, they had 2 first-round picks, right? So with the 19th pick, if they were going to trade up, if trading up was already a strategy, unless they absolutely loved Olave, I'd argue that there was a chance Olave could have been there at 19. Now, he might not have been, right? Don't get me wrong. He might not have been. But if offensive tackle, they lost Teron Armstead, offensive tackle was such a big hole, wouldn't you think it makes more sense if the idea was to trade up anyways, to trade up and get one of the 3 like non-missable offensive tackles in Cross, Iquanu, or Evan Neal versus getting a guy like Trevor Penning, who played at Northern Iowa. He had led the nation in penalties. He's really good. He's like very ferocious and shit, but it also works to his demise because he draws a lot of penalties. That part I didn't understand. Like, it almost seemed like to me they flip-flopped those where they could have traded up, actually got a offensive tackle that is a can't miss guy, and then still got Olave at 19. And if not Olave, again, you get the next tier of guys like Jahan Dotson, all those guys who I think are very comparable. So that weird strategy in the first round, to me, I didn't think there was a need to trade up 3 or 4 spots just to get a guy like Chris Olave, but that's, again, my personal opinion. Don't know. And then obviously Shishot, you already mentioned the other thing, Alontae Taylor, 2nd round, 49th pick. That guy is a project at best, and he's drafted inside the top 50 of a draft that had very heavy, 2nd, 3rd round talent that could be immediate day 1 starters, right? So when you have a middle heavy draft and you can get guys that are day 1 starters, why are you drafting guys at the 49th overall pick that are projects that you don't even know what position they play? Safety, corner, nickel, outside, you don't know. So that did not make sense to me. And then obviously their only other 2 picks of the draft were round 5 and round 6. And we all know those guys typically don't pan out. So of their entire draft, they had 3 picks that had a chance to pan out. They drafted a project with their 3rd pick, and then they traded up with their 1st pick to get, a receiver that I think is not as good as the receiver that was already on the board. And when they could have traded up and taken a tackle that's better than the tackle they took. So strategically, I'm very, very questioning the way the Saints maneuvered this draft. But I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah, their 4th pick, they're already saying is at best he's going to be playing special teams for a while. So it's like, what are you doing, dude?
Cap situation was shitty for them. They weren't able to get as much free agent talent as they wanted. And then they were very, very slim and thin in the draft. So I don't know, man. It's really not shaping up well for Dennis Allen's first year and, life for Jameis Winston, because he needs help. He needs all the help he can get. So I don't know. For a guy that loves to throw bombs, it seems like Jameson Williams would have been the perfect pairing for a guy that likes to throw the ball deep. But I don't know. The Commanders are next on my board. I don't get that. I don't get this situation either. So kind of flip-flop with the Saints. They traded down to get Jahan Dotson at 16, which Jahan Dotson at 16 is a reach, right? When they were at 11, they could have taken Olave, they could have taken Williams. So they traded down to take a receiver that, to me, if he was drafted at his highest, should have gone in the 20s, but he could have been the best, 35th pick of the draft or something like that. So they took him at 16 when they had the opportunity to take a receiver who was already better there. They traded down. And then not only that, in round 2 with the 47th overall pick, they took Mathis, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. And a couple things with him. He's 75th on the consensus board. So it was a little bit of a reach. And there was a guy like Travis Jones, who's an absolute mauler at defensive tackle, who fell to 76, and his consensus was 47. So there were other players at that specific position they were looking for that had higher upside, that were graded out better, that were projected better. All things were better. And yet for some reason, whatever they saw that Mathis was going to be the difference. Now, yeah, he played at Bama. So, there's always that. oh, he played at Bama, so he could end up being nice. But I think that was a reach, and there was a better option at the exact same position at that level. And then last but not least, guys, Antonio Gibson just, dude, the fucking Washington Commanders must fucking hate Antonio Gibson, because with in the third round with the 98th overall pick, they took Brian Robinson Jr., the running back out of Alabama, who, let's be real, he's actually not that good. Like, again, Bama, but I didn't really like Brian Robinson even as a running back at Alabama, let alone a prospect here, let alone a guy you would draft in the third round when you already have a guy that, because JD McKissic is, wait, I take that back. He's back. He was gone and then they like signed him back, right?
Came back.
He signed with another team and then like canceled it and then like is back. You already have JD McKissic as your pass catcher. We've already established that if Antonio Gibson just got carries, maybe he'd actually be decent and given an opportunity, but they just don't believe that. So they're like, you know what? We're going to draft Brian Robinson, which again, running back, the value, that's always a conversation. Where do you draft him? Especially a team that clearly like running back was not a deficiency. You already have Gibson and McKissic. Why are you taking a running back with the third pick? So all three of their first three picks to me were just ass. So I don't understand what the logic was there at all.
Yeah. So for me, it's the positions that they picked at that round. So the first round receiver, they need a receiver. So they go and get Jahan Dotson. I mean, how do you know which receiver out of this deep class is going to be good? Fine, whatever, right? But the second pick, where they would go and get a defensive tackle, I think that they had to address their cornerback and safety position, which was a lot worse last year than their defensive tackles. I mean, their defensive tackles have always been first rounders in that they've drafted in the last 4 or 5 years. So I don't think that they needed to even address that until later rounds. They don't get a safety until the 4th round, and then a cornerback in the 7th round of this draft. So not addressing that more important need of a cornerback safety is the reason that they did not get as a high of a draft grade for me this year.
And exactly. And there's something to be said. If you're not addressing needs, but you're taking best player available, because again, you can't pass them up, then to some extent, I'll let it slide. Obviously, again, if it's an outlier or whatever, but to some extent, I'll let it slide. But they didn't do that. They didn't just stick to their positional spots and take best player available. They still reached at both positions all three positions in the top 3 that they drafted, and didn't address really many needs. So I do agree, though. I think Jahan Dotson will be a nice compliment to Terry McLaurin. So I don't really care about that one as much as I care about a running back in the 3rd round when you already have 2, and then a defensive tackle, like you mentioned, when their defensive line's already pretty damn formidable. So I don't know. I mean, any team that gets Carson Wentz, I just feel like there's a weird psychological aspect where everything just starts to get everything just starts to get very reckless and like just trying to do too much. But
first of all, the Commanders are not a team that were one thing away from one thing. Like they were a bad team, right? They drafted Sam Howell with their 5th round pick. That's what? Like, don't you already have Taylor Heineke, like who's a good enough backup? Could you not have waited to pick up another backup in free agency? Sam Howell, you could have drafted another defensive tackle there. You could have drafted, another tight end, the guards, the cornerbacks that they drafted a little bit later. You could have addressed all of that a little bit earlier, and you would have probably had Sam Howell still available at every single one of those picks after that. So it's like, what is the thought process here? I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the Commanders draft at all. Almost as much as I didn't like the Cardinals. I hated the Cardinals draft. I absolutely hated it. And I was doing a lot of research, and surprisingly, some people really liked it. But explain this to me. You already lost the draft the minute you traded for Hollywood Brown. So let's just get that out of the way. He sucks. I don't care that he played with Kyler Murray in college at Oklahoma. Like, this isn't going to be a Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow situation. Those guys are like way fucking better than Kyler Murray and Hollywood Brown. So I already hate that. I already absolutely hate that. And then in the 2nd round, yes, you got the best tight end in the draft. Congratulations. On a team that already has Zach Ertz and that already has Max Williams. Why the hell are you drafting a tight end in the 2nd round? You can't play 3 tight ends. 3 tight end formation doesn't exist. You're going to run I formation the whole game? They're not going to, like, Max Williams and Zach Ertz. They are both receiving tight ends. Max Williams, pseudo whatever, but Zach Ertz is a catching tight end. So for you to go out in the 2nd round and address a receiving tight end when you have so many fucking holes on the offensive line, on the defense, like there's so many other places you could have gone with this, but your first 2 picks basically were Hollywood Brown. I hate him. And a tight end, which you just didn't need. Like, again, this is a situation where best player available, it doesn't make sense because you have 2 on your roster that are already formidable. So I don't get that. I just Don't get that. They had 2 third-round picks, don't care. And then the rest of their picks were round 6 and 7. So it's not like they were like, let's do something in the first 2 rounds that, is different than, what we ideally want to do because we have so many other picks that we can make up for it. No, 6 and 7 round picks typically never pan out. So with your 2 most prized possessions, you got Hollywood Brown and a tight end when you didn't need a tight end. I'm sorry, Cardinals, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the same reason I had. I mean, picking a tight end when you have Max Williams and Zach Ertz. I had Max Williams last year on my fantasy team at one point before he got injured, and I was very pleased with his production. I thought he was a great tight end, and they loved giving him the ball. They loved using using Max Williams, and then when Zach Ertz came, they loved using Zach Ertz. And so I wasn't really sure. I wasn't sure where they were going with this, and then obviously Hollywood Brown getting added. Yeah, I don't know.
Especially when now it's going to stick in your brain that you could have also maybe gotten like a AJ Brown with the same first round type of pick. So it just like you obviously are going to be inclined to compare those two because they happen in the same draft. And you're like, dude, it like Hollywood Brown is here and AJ Brown's here. Like it's no contest to me. So,
but you're probably going to have to pay him the AJ Brown price now because of the way you drafted him.
You're right. And the financials come into play as well. Maybe Hollywood's not going to be as costly and they already have Hopkins on contract and he's expensive and Kyler wants like 50 fucking million a year. So maybe that also came into the equation. But again, when you're in a win now mode and like you can still trade for him and he could be on a contract year essentially, and you can still maximize what you get from him because you're in a win now mode. To me, that 1 year of him and the uncertainty that maybe he doesn't sign with you is still worth trading away a first round pick versus trading away a first round pick for an inferior talent just because you're sure he's going to stick around. But do you really want Hollywood Brown sticking around and dropping passes from Kyler Murray? No. So, no,
I agree. No, and just to clarify, I mean that, well, if you actually drafted a first round receiver, you're paying him less than what you would have to play Hollywood Brown in the long run,
less,
right?
Way less.
Financially, this doesn't make sense either. Yeah.
I don't know.
They're just going with straight chemistry at this point. There is no other answer. They're like just hoping there's a resurgence. You know, like Nelson Aguilar just left that Eagles team and then he like went with the Patriots and scored a couple touchdowns. I think they're just kind of expecting some sort of resurgence, but we've seen with bad hands, it never really gets better. That's who you are.
That's what I'm saying. It's one of those things that yes, you can like improve, but I've never seen guys that just drop passes all of a sudden stop dropping passes. That doesn't happen. They drop less. It doesn't happen. Like I think that's like a characteristic that you're going to carry forward forever. And Kyler's already such a frustrating player. I imagine like the rumblings are like he's not the best locker room guy either. So I mean, I wonder how like long or short his leash is going to be with his own former teammate when he all of a sudden just keeps dropping passes. Like I don't care that you're my former teammate if now we're at the grandest stage of them all and you're not producing to the level that you should be. So I don't know. Cardinals. Sorry, horrible draft for you. Not happy at all. And for me, the fifth one, kind of a toss-up, but also kind of debatable. Again, I thought for the most part, a lot of teams did really, really well drafting. I put the Rams and Dolphins on here, but I lean more Dolphins. Here's why. The reason both these guys are on here is neither of them had a first and a second round pick, right? So both of their drafts started in the third round. Obviously, the Rams won a Super Bowl because of that. They traded away those picks and they got Matthew Stafford, and that became a Super Bowl. So that's a win already. So like, it doesn't really matter. The way I look at it is it's more the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill's a generational talent. Don't get me wrong. When you can trade for Tyreek Hill, it's obviously a bonus, but your quarterback is also Tua, who I'm very, very low on. So I don't know that, not having a first or second round pick and then, getting Tyreek Hill, it's like acquiring an asset and then having like trash throwing to your asset. Like, yeah, I mean, we talked about Jared Goff. He can flourish when, he's in a shit. He's bad, but he's in a great system with a lot of great players. But again, I don't know where your guys' stance really is on Tua, but like, I am not a believer in Tua. Like, I just don't think he's going to have it. I think he can put up good numbers. I think he's got so many weapons around him that it'd be kind of impossible for him to not put up good statistics, but I don't think he's a great quarterback. Like, I don't think he's got a good enough arm. So I just worry that, yes, you acquired like a prized possession in Tyreek Hill, but what if you find out in the middle of this year that Tua is not your answer? Then all of a sudden you hindered your first round picks this year. I think they gave up a first next year too. So you already hindered some of your future on the hopes of a quarterback that might not be the answer. So here's why I would have, here's how I would have taken the Dolphins off this list. If the Dolphins with their third round pick took a guy like Malik Willis, then I wouldn't hate any of this. Then I'd be like, you know what? It makes sense. You traded for Tyreek Hill. You think Tua's the answer now. And if he's not, you have a contingent plan to also take a stab at, right? And again, Malik Willis could not be the answer as well, but at least you have a backup plan. Right now, it's Tua or bust. And you like hampered your entire future because you traded for Tyreek Hill, lost a lot of draft capital, and paid him a shit ton of money. So I just don't want this to be a situation where there's so many weapons everywhere and there's not a single good quarterback to throw them the football.
Yeah, I wonder if like Mike McDaniel is too much of a bro that's like not allowing him to do that, like draft a quarterback. Because I remember when he first got on the team, they were in like a jet and they were FaceTiming with Tua. Yo, Tua, you're the man. Like, we're going to get to work as soon as you get here. So maybe he just didn't want to hurt his feelings. I wonder if that has anything to play with it. Maybe just speculation, but I don't know.
They did draft a quarterback, but it was in the 7th round. So I'm not sure if that guy's going to do anything. Some Thompson guy, I believe, Skylar Thompson from Kansas State.
Sorry, dude.
So they do have a backup in play, but I just don't know how. It doesn't seem like a very feasible backup at this stage. I do like how they are now called the Legion of Zoom, though, because everybody's so fucking fast on this team. They did draft Eric Ezukanma, wide receiver from Texas Tech, who's like incredibly fast. They like to throw him screen passes in the slot and like quick outs and stuff like that. So maybe that's exactly what Tua needs. Maybe all this speed can open up a lot of space, and then Tyreek Hill can take the roof over the top, and maybe it could work out.
Yeah, again, I think Tua is an incredibly advantageous position to succeed. I mean, they picked up Edmonds. They traded for Tyreek Hill. You already have Waddle. You already have Gesicki. They signed Cedric Wilson. They drafted Eric Uzukama. So they have a ton of weapons. They signed Teron Armstead, arguably one of the best left tackles in the game. They signed left guard Connor Williams from the Cowboys. So they fortified every position to give Tua a chance to succeed. I think, again, the cherry on top would have been, you know what, as a contingency, since he's falling in our laps. Let's just take Malik Willis in the 3rd round. He was there in the 3rd round. They could have taken him in the 3rd round, but they didn't. So that's my only hindrance on the Dolphins. But again, it's hard when you know that the reason the Rams and the Dolphins didn't have 1st and 2nd round picks is because they got already proven talent, and the Rams already won a Super Bowl with that proven talent. So the Rams don't count. To me, it's the Dolphins. But again, pseudo Dolphins. But those are my worst overall drafts. Shovit, I know you had some that didn't overlap. Take it away, man.
Yeah, I've got 2 and I'll make it pretty quick. But first one is going to be Chicago Bears. I think it was very evident that their coach is a defensive coach. I mean, the first 2 picks, they go out and get a cornerback and safety, Kyler Gordon in the 2nd round, the 7th pick of the 2nd round, and Gaquan Brisker, the 16th pick of the 2nd round, safety from Penn State. So the thing is that, when you have a quarterback in Justin Fields and you're trying to build a team around him, you would expect them to have more weapons so that you can, you lose Allen Robinson as a receiver. And so you get this guy named Velus Jones Jr. from wide receiver from Tennessee, when there were other receivers that would have been available in that 7th pick. So for me, it's not having more of a surrounding around Justin Fields and not working around him in order to, be successful. It seems like defense is the focus here still.
Yeah, the Bears seem like they're in a clear, like full-on rebuild mode, but it would have been nice for them. Like it says something when they're not supporting their young quarterback by, surrounding him with talent and weapons, right? Is it the fact that they don't believe in him? Is it the fact that maybe they felt like, this draft was predicated on defense? They need to fix the defense first. But like Justin Fields' weapons are pretty fucking shitty. Darnell Mooney's a nice player. Don't get me wrong. Equanimeous St. Brown. He's the shittier of the St. Brown brothers. Byron Pringle, Chips.
Dude, I don't even want to hear anymore. It can't get better after Pringle.
I have to read some of these names of these receivers, bro, because this is Velus Jones Jr., who they drafted out of Tennessee. Don't care. Daz Newsome, Isaiah Coulter, Nasimba Webster, Kevin Shaw, and Henry Litwin.
Wow.
So, I mean,
you know what this means? Montgomery is once again going to be a top 10 ball carrier.
Motherfucking. Oh, and not to mention their starting right guard this year, helping out Justin Fields, Dakota Dozier, the worst lineman maybe in the history of the Minnesota Vikings football. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, yes, if their defense makes tremendous strides and like they're successful, then sure, long term, the draft was successful. But this to me, like, I don't know, slowly like oozes of, I don't know what the organization actually thinks of Justin Fields. Like, do they think he's the answer? Like, if they were truly all in on him, why would they not surround him with help? They didn't. They didn't surround him with anything. Nobody that he's throwing the football to makes me excited. Cole Kmet, I know you love him, shove it. I'm not excited about that. I'm not excited about anybody on their offense. It almost makes me not excited about David Montgomery because they can just put 8 in the box now. They can put 8 in the box, and Justin Fields is going to have to throw the ball to Daz Newsome.
One does not simply not get excited over David Montgomery.
Hey, I had him last year too, man. He's a stud. But, dude, I don't know, man. Chicago, you're spot on, Shovit. They did not help Justin Fields in the slightest.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah. So the other team that I have, last team, is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals, in the first pick, at Daxton Hill, safety from Michigan. I think that was a good pick. But on the second pick of the second round, 28th pick, they get Cam Taylor-Britt, which is also a safety from Nebraska. And then from the fifth round, 23rd pick, Tyson Anderson, which is also a safety from Toledo. So I'm not really sure what the strategy was here. I thought the strategy would be to help, Burrow not be sacked 11 times in the game. The only tackle that they got is the offensive tackle Cordell Volson from North Dakota State. So I would have liked to see them, help out Joe Burrow out a little bit more so they can get to that promised land and actually win in that promised land. But hey, I'm not the GM.
Yeah. So 2 things on that. One, I don't know that they needed to go offensive line just because they did a good job in free agency. Lyle Collins.
They did get Lyle Collins. Yeah, that's a huge upgrade.
They got Lyle Collins at right tackle and Alex Kapp at right guard, right? So their right side basically was all free agency. I agree that the left side's not amazing. It's also not like the worst it's been. So it's steadily improving. But the thing about their draft pick, Daxton Hill is a hybrid. He can play safety. He can play cornerback. There's times we love that and there's times we hate that. I know it's hard to wear both hats, but when you can do it successfully, we love it. We love guys that can do both. The NFL is so evolving that they like gadget guys that can do everything, right? You can play linebacker, you can play safety, you can play nickel corner, you can play receiver, you can play running back. So when you start having all these guys on offense that can play receiver, but line up in the backfield, you start to try to get guys on defense that can literally shadow that guy. Hey, if he's in the backfield, you're covering him. If he's outside, you're covering him. If he's inside, you're covering him. To me, Dax Hill could do things like that. So I do really like him. Cam Taylor-Britt, anytime a player from Nebraska gets drafted, I have a weird homer, but it's a negative homer because Nebraska sucks. Cam Taylor-Britt was the only player on their entire defense that stood out to me. He's a good player. He did play safety, but he played a lot of nickel corner as well. So I think he's also the hybrid. So they're trying to do this weird hybrid situation. Mm-hmm. Tyson Anderson, I have no idea. That I do not know, but I think the top 2 picks have a chance, but I agree with you. There's not enough depth at the bottom of their draft to warrant that. If Cam Taylor, I think Dax Hill will be a good player, but I'm not sold on Cam Taylor-Britt. So after Dax Hill, their entire draft could be basically nothing, a useless draft. All they got was one guy who can play safety and nickel corner. So yeah, you're not wrong. It's almost like Cincinnati was oh, we're already good. We were at the Super Bowl last year. We're just going to repeat and get there again. So I don't like that mindset, but I think the reason maybe they didn't attack offensive line is because they signed those 2 players in free agency.
Yeah, the Bengals aren't making a Super Bowl. That's not.
No, it's incredibly difficult.
That was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's really, really tough. That's it, right? That's what you got, Shovit?
That's all I've got. I have one other thing that I wanted to add. I should have mentioned this earlier with the players, but Brock Purdy, quarterback from Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Yeah, Mr. Irrelevant. This guy was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers as the last pick of this year's draft. I watched his highlights. Do yourself a favor.
Bad.
It's bad.
I need to watch highlights, bro. I watched him play. He is so bad.
Is he really?
Yes, he is god awful. He's slow. He can't process anything. I mean, this guy was the classic, undrafted practice squad. Yeah, he'll run the practice squad for you, but he's not going to be anything. And for some reason, he drafted it.
That's crazy because that's the complete opposite of what I was about to say. Because I was like, the last pick is a quarterback. So I watched his highlights. I'm talking they obviously it's highlights, right? I mean, but this guy had some plays that the ball was just right where the receiver needed it to be. Obviously, you're playing Iowa State. I guess that's a fairly decent. Well, yeah, not terrible. So I thought it was pretty impressive. It was this guy's got some. Could look if he can become something great, he would be the best last pick. In history of being a quarterback.
He'd be the best 7th rounder. He'd be the latest quarterback to ever be worth a shit. Yeah. So he's got a lot of uphill battle to climb. Let me tell you.
Just like the hand conversation.
Yeah.
If they could be, they would be great.
I'm sorry to burst your bubble, Chauvin. He is not going to be good. I will stamp that on this podcast.
He doesn't even have a pretty good chance.
I know. He's got a pretty good chance to be fucking awful. Oh man.
I mean, he is playing behind Garoppolo, and Lance apparently is not doing too well in 49er land, is what I've read as of yesterday. So I don't know. They just started doing their practices, and apparently he's coming in not hot. So maybe Purdy's gonna do something there. I don't know.
Prove me wrong, Purdy. I will love it if you prove me wrong. But dude, I watched a lot of Iowa State because I watch Big 12 football. Man, he is bad. He's very, very bad. And like you said, highlights. Yeah, I could pull up highlights for Joe Webb at quarterback, and we'd be like, holy shit, this guy's fast. He's got a cannon. Holy shit. And then you'd see it all together on like over 60 minutes and you'd be like, oh, he's not a quarterback. He's very bad. But I don't know, man. I hope you're right. I think I'm waiting for the day. I can't think of, has there ever been a Mr. Irrelevant that's actually like played or like been even remotely decent?
I think there has, but like, back in the day or something. I'm not really sure. I pulled up I'll have to look. But I mean, don't you want to hear Tim Collins stories? And now this guy here, last pick of the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, this is a guy that has a chip on his shoulder, right? I mean, you're looking at a guy in college. He can make all the throws. Sure, he doesn't have
Suckup. Ryan Suckup is the most legendary Mr. Irrelevant of all time.
He was selected 256th in 2009 by the Chiefs. Still a kicker in the NFL, right? He still plays?
I don't know if Suckup still kicks. I don't think so.
Man, Suckup.
Oh, wait. Tampa Bay? Does he?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think he does, right? Yeah, he still plays for the Bucs.
Tampa Bay. Okay.
So Mr. Irrelevant, 13 years later, is still the kicker for the team that drafted him.
Damn, just won a Super Bowl. Wow.
Kudos, Suckup. You're the new kick god. That's pretty damn impressive. I don't know. Let's see if Brock Purdy can take the mantle as the best Mr. Irrelevant of all time. But that's it. That's our 5 best, 5 worst drafts per team and overall players. It's going to be a slower offseason moving forward because the draft's over Thursday. I think the NFL announces their schedule release, so that'll be interesting to see. I think the Vikings have a London game against the Saints this year, so that should be exciting. But yeah, other than that, it's going to be, slowly treading into like mini camp and OTAs and all that shit till we get into preseason and all that crap. So the content hopefully won't stop. Thank you guys so much for all of the support. We live, eat, breathe, sleep football. There's nothing that makes me happier than coming on this podcast and talking about football with you guys. So thank you guys so much for all the support. We're the only playbook. Peace.